the Korean military officers are celebrating their recent victory over Vietnam. Colonel Kim Jin-pyong, who successfully captured an island from the Vietnamese, is invited by his superior to join them for a drink in celebration. At first, Jin-pyong refuses, saying he has stopped drinking, but when the general jokes about it, he gives in and drinks anyway. A little later, while the celebration continues, Jin-pyong steps outside and throws up. He lights a cigarette to calm himself, but two officers soon walk out of the building. Not wanting to talk, he hides nearby. As they chat, one of them complains that the general always praises Jin-pyong just because he's his son-in-law. Before their gossip continues, someone calls them back inside. The next morning, Jin-pyong meets Captain Kyung Woo-jin, who has just been transferred to their base. While checking his files, Jin-pyong notices that Kyung also served in Vietnam. Then he spots a woman's name listed as Kyung's wife and asks about her. Kyung explains that his wife is Chinese, which somehow catches Jin-pyong's interest. That evening, Jin-pyong returns home. His wife is setting the table for dinner and reminds him that he has a photo session at the hospital with the nurses. As they eat, she mentions meeting Captain Kyung's wife and says she's glad the new couple also doesn't have children, just like them. Jin-pyong then notices several red circles marked on the calendar and asks what they mean. His wife explains those are her ovulation days. Since that day happens to be one of them, the couple decides to try for a baby that night. Afterward, Jin-pyong goes out for a walk. He hears birds chirping and follows the sound, finding several cages lined up with birds inside. He carelessly blows a bit of smoke toward one, but suddenly a woman appears behind him and tells him the birds don't like that. He turns around and realizes she's Captain Kyung's wife. Quickly, he apologizes. She asks if he dislikes birds, and he says he doesn't, he never meant to disturb them. The next day, Jin-pyong visits the military doctor. He says he's been seeing things and suffering from panic attacks since the war. The doctor tells him it's a sign of PTSD and that he needs proper treatment. Before Jin-pyong leaves, the doctor gives him some medicine and reminds him not to drink alcohol. Jin-pyong then asks if the doctor has told anyone about his condition, and the doctor assures him he hasn't. Later, Jin-pyong goes to the hospital, where his wife is waiting. He takes photos with the nurses, including Captain Kyung's wife, Jang Gaeun. After the photo session, he joins the nurses as they care for injured officers. Meanwhile, his wife introduces herself to Gaeun and casually asks why she and her husband still don't have children. Though clearly uneasy, Gaeun admits she hasn't been able to conceive. Just then, an injured soldier calls for Jin-pyong's wife to help him sit up. As she moves closer, Gaeun notices a blade in his hand. Before anyone can react, she pushes Jin-pyong's wife away and ends up being taken hostage by the unstable man. Seeing this, Jin-pyong rushes to help. He faces the soldier and calmly tells him to let her go, but the man keeps shouting for them to send him back to Korea. Knowing he's struggling with PTSD, Jin-pyong gently tells him he's already home. Still, the man refuses to release her, so Jin-pyong pulls out his gun and points it at him. Terrified, Gaeun pleads with him to lower the weapon. Jin-pyong lowers his weapon and tells the soldier he'll help him go back to Korea if he releases her. When the man finally loosens his grip, he suddenly lunges for the gun. In the struggle that follows, the gun fires, and the bullet hits Gaeun in the shoulder. But instead of worrying about her injury, Gaeun begins searching for her missing earring. Later, at the military camp, Jin-pyong hears shouting from another room and goes to check. Inside, he finds Captain Kyung furiously beating the same unstable soldier. Jin-pyong steps in to stop him, explaining that the man was hallucinating and couldn't control his actions. Afterward, Jin-pyong and Kyung step outside for a smoke. While talking, Jin-pyong asks if he can visit Kyung's wife to apologize for what happened. Kyung agrees. Jin-pyong then visits Gaeun's hospital room. He brings her flowers and asks how she's feeling. She tells him the flowers will wilt without water, so he heads to the office to get a vase. He trims the flowers carefully, arranges them neatly, and brings them back to her room. He also surprises her by returning her missing earring. When she tries to put it on but struggles because of her injured arm, she asks for his help. Jin-pyong gently helps her wear it, and as he does, she says she was deeply touched by his courage that day. Later that day, Jin-pyong returns to work. An officer informs him that the owner of a local music studio he often visits has been arrested by the military police. Since Jin-pyong knows the man personally, he decides to attend the interrogation. He learns that the man's crime was dancing with the officers' wives on Monday mornings, a strange accusation. Jin Pyong assures the interrogator that his friend meant no harm and promises it won't happen again, convincing them to let him go. Afterward, the two go out for a drink. Curious, Jin Pyong asks why he only dances with the wives on Mondays. The man laughs and says lonely housewives often pick Mondays as their fresh start for mischief. The next day, Jin Pyong and his wife join Captain Kyung and Gaeun for a picnic. At one point, when Jin Pyong and Gaeun are left alone, she quietly admits she hasn't stopped thinking about him since his visit. He confesses that she's been on his mind too. The moment grows tense, but Gaeun changes the topic by asking about the design engraved on his lighter. She says it looks beautiful, and Jin Pyong, without saying a word, slips it into her bag. Over the next few days, the two begin exchanging subtle, longing glances whenever they see each other. Then one evening, the military hosts a party for officers and their families. Gaeun arrives in a backless dress, instantly catching the attention of a high-ranking officer. He asks her to dance, and though she looks uneasy, her husband encourages her to accept, eager to please his superior. As they dance, Jin Pyong notices the older man's hand brushing against her back. Unable to step in, he quietly leaves and heads to the restroom. After Gaeun manages to get away from the officer, she goes to look for Jin Pyong. He apologizes for not defending her, but she tells him she's grateful to him anyway. Overwhelmed by emotion, Jin Pyong suddenly kisses her, and they share a passionate moment, until someone knocks on the restroom door. Startled, Gaeun quickly leaves before anyone finds them. The next day, the officers' wives gather for tea, except Gaeun. During their chat, they start gossiping about her past. They say that during the war, Gaeun's family fled to the mountains, but after her father passed away, her mother abandoned her. She was later taken in by Captain Kyung's mother, who eventually arranged for her to marry her son. One evening, Captain Kyung and his wife have dinner with Jin Pyong and his wife. While the two chat about coffee, Jin Pyong quietly writes a note for Gaeun, saying he wants to see her alone. He discreetly passes it to her. She writes back, telling him to meet her at the cathedral the next day at noon. The next afternoon, Jin Pyong meets Gaeun outside the cathedral, and he drives her deep into the forest, far from anyone's sight. There, they give in to their emotions and share an intimate moment. Afterward, Jin Pyong drops her off and drives away, but in the days that follow, he can't stop thinking about her. Haunted by longing and unable to let go, he comes up with a plan to send both his wife and her husband away for a while. The next day, Captain Kyung tells his wife he's been assigned to help an English convoy as a translator and will be gone for a few days. As soon as Kyung leaves, Jin Pyong visits Gaeun late at night. But when he knocks on her door, she refuses to let him in, saying he shouldn't have meddled by sending her husband away. Rejected and frustrated, Jin Pyong goes to the music studio to drink with his friend. In his drunken state, he confesses that he's been having an affair with Captain Kyung's wife. His friend warns him to stop before it's too late, but Jin Pyong ignores him. Still unable to stay away, Jin Pyong visits Gaeun again, this time bringing her some soup. She finally opens the door, and they both admit that their relationship has to end. But despite their words, they give in to temptation once more and spend the night together. Over the next few days, while their spouses are away, they continue to meet in secret, savoring their short-lived happiness. Then one day, Jin Pyong gets a call from one of his men, saying Gaeun's mother has been in an accident and is in the hospital. Jin Pyong quickly drives Gaeun there, and when they arrive, they find her mother and mother-in-law in the same room. Her mother-in-law, sensing everything just by looking at them, realizes Gaeun has fallen for Jin Pyong. Instead of scolding her, she tells Gaeun to follow her heart, admitting she always knew her son wasn't the right man for her. But when Gaeun returns to the truck where Jin Pyong is waiting, she tells him that what they're doing is wrong and it has to end. Jin Pyong is crushed by her words and refuses to accept it. Soon after, driven by jealousy and anger, he asks one of his connections to frame Captain Kyung for smuggling drugs. The plan works. Kyung is arrested, and his mother, heartbroken, confronts him. He insists he's innocent and has been set up. His mother, realizing the truth, figures out that Jin Pyong is behind it all. She urges Gaeun to make things right. Gaeun later asks Jin Pyong to help clear her husband's name, and the commander reluctantly agrees. The following night, Jin Pyong walks into a surprise celebration prepared by his wife and friends. He's just been promoted to general. During dinner, his wife proudly announces that she's pregnant. Instead of joy, the news fills Jin Pyong with sorrow and regret. He spends the rest of the night drowning himself in alcohol. When he sees Gaeun step outside, he follows her and asks why she still refuses to be with him. But once again, she turns him down and walks back inside. Drunk and desperate, Jin Pyong storms in after her and, in front of everyone, shouts for her to take him back. In his outburst, he exposes their affair for everyone to hear. Captain Kyung rushes to stop him, but Jin Pyong punches him and knocks him out. Other men quickly hold Jin Pyong back while Gaeun, humiliated, runs away. Later, his father-in-law confronts him about the scandal and orders that he be sent overseas to reflect on his behavior. Before leaving, Jin Pyong meets Gaeun one last time. He apologizes and tells her he's being reassigned to Vietnam, begging her to go with him. But she refuses again, saying it's truly over between them. Crushed and unable to bear the pain, Jin Pyong pulls out his gun and shoots himself in the chest. He survives, but the scene ends with him collapsing. 2 years later, an officer visits Gaeun and hands her an old photograph of her and Jin Pyong. He tells her that Jin Pyong died in battle while trying to save his men in the mountains. Tears fall down her face as she turns the photo over. On the back are 2 simple words written in his hand, "My love."